The single dad sat alone at the corner table, his tea growing cold as the world rushed past the cafe window. His phone buzzed with unread messages from work, but his eyes stayed fixed on the empty chair across from him. He had learned to live with silence, but that afternoon, the silence felt heavier than usual, like it was waiting for something to happen. That was when a trembling voice broke through the quiet. An old woman leaned close and whispered words that would change everything. "Please, pretend you're my daughter's fiancé." Before the story continues, take a moment to support the channel. If stories about kindness, second chances, and unexpected connections touch your heart, please subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. You're watching Storyverse, where every story reminds us that kindness still matters. The single dad's name was Daniel. He was 36, tired in a way sleep could never fix, and raising his 8-year-old son alone since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. That afternoon was rare quiet time. His son was at school, and Daniel had stopped by the cafe just to breathe for a moment. Tea was cheaper than therapy, he used to joke. The old woman stood beside his table, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched a worn purse. Her eyes were sharp but full of fear. Daniel looked around, confused, then back at her. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I think you have the wrong person." She shook her head. "No. Please. Just for a minute. They're watching." Daniel followed her gaze. Across the cafe stood a well-dressed couple and a young woman in her late 20s. The young woman's arms were crossed tightly, her face pale and tense. "That's my daughter," the old woman whispered. "She told them she's engaged. They don't believe her. If they find out she lied, they'll force her into a marriage she doesn't want." Daniel's first instinct was to say no. He was just a stranger. He had his own problems. But then he looked back at the daughter. He saw panic in her eyes, the same kind of fear his son had shown on the night they lost his mother. "How long?" Daniel asked quietly. 5 minutes, the old woman said, almost pleading. "That's all." Daniel stood up. He straightened his jacket, took a breath, and walked over with the old woman like it was the most natural thing in the world. The daughter looked at him in shock as he slipped an arm around her shoulders. "Sorry I'm late," Daniel said with an easy smile. Traffic was terrible. The couple turned. Their faces changed instantly. "And you are?" the man asked, his voice sharp. "Daniel," he replied calmly. "I'm engaged to your daughter." He felt the young woman stiffen, then slowly relax as she played along. She took his hand, her palm cold and shaking. They talked. About work. About plans. About a wedding date that didn't exist. Daniel didn't overdo it. He listened more than he spoke. He stayed respectful, steady, kind. The kind of man any parent would want their child to marry. After a few tense minutes, the couple exchanged glances. "Well," the woman said, forcing a smile, "we didn't realize things were so serious." "They are," Daniel said softly. "And I love your daughter." The daughter looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. The couple eventually left, still skeptical but no longer pushing. When they were gone, the daughter let out a shaky breath and covered her face. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Daniel replied. "But I'm glad I did." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. She took Daniel's hands and held them tightly. "You have no idea what you've done for us," she said. They sat back down at the table together. Tea was refilled. Names were shared. The daughter's name was Emily. She worked 2 jobs and dreamed of going back to school. Her parents believed control was love. Daniel understood that kind of pressure. When it was time to leave, Emily hesitated. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" she asked, embarrassed. "As yourself. Not pretending." Daniel smiled. "I'd like that." Weeks passed. Then months. Daniel introduced Emily to his son. Slowly. Carefully. Emily didn't try to replace anyone. She just showed up, with patience, warmth, and kindness. She helped with homework. She listened to bedtime stories. She brought laughter back into a home that had forgotten what it sounded like. One evening, Daniel found his son whispering to Emily in the kitchen, "I think my dad smiles more now," his son said. Emily's eyes met Daniel's across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. The old woman visited often. She brought food. She brought blessings. And every time she saw Daniel, she said the same thing: "Kindness brought you here." A year later, Daniel stood in the same cafe. This time, Emily sat across from him, laughing as his son stirred sugar into his tea. Daniel looked around and realized something. That day he agreed to pretend, to help a stranger. He wasn't just offering a favor. He was opening a door. Kindness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it asks for 5 minutes. But when you answer, it can change lives, including your own. So if you ever find yourself sitting alone, wondering if small kindnesses still matter, remember this story. One gentle choice can turn loneliness into family, fear into hope, and strangers into something much more. And maybe, just maybe, the next time kindness whispers your name, you'll answer too.